My name is Claire Hastings, and I was 38 the day I stood at my mother's funeral, waiting for my sister Elise to walk through the chapel doors. It had been 6 years since I'd last seen her, 6 years since she stole the man I was going to marry. And yet, on that rainy morning, I wasn't angry. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't even bitter. I was calm, because she had no idea who would be sitting beside me. She didn't know the kind of love I had found, or the woman I had become. You see, when someone takes everything from you, you're left with nothing but truth. And what you do with that truth, well, that's where the story begins. As the organ played softly in the background and guests murmured in hushed voices, my eyes stayed locked on the chapel doors. I knew she'd come. She wouldn't dare miss our mother's funeral. Not even she would be that heartless. But I wasn't the same woman she betrayed. The Claire she knew was broken, devastated, shattered into pieces she thought would never come back together. But life has a funny way of rebuilding what others try to destroy. And when Elise finally arrived, clutching her designer handbag, her diamond ring flashing under the stained glass, I watched her scan the room with that same smug smile she always wore, until her eyes landed on me, and then on the man beside me. Her smile vanished, because in that moment, she realized the sister she betrayed had not only survived, but had risen in ways she never imagined. And that's where this story truly begins. Before all the betrayal, before the heartbreak, I was someone else. I was Claire Hastings, a daughter, a sister, a marketing executive with a fast-paced life and a beautiful apartment in downtown Portland. I had what people called a good life: the job, the income, the friends, the little victories that looked great on social media. But something was missing. I didn't know it at the time, but I was running on autopilot. I worked long hours, came home to an empty apartment, and spent weekends with takeout and emails. I dated occasionally, but nothing stuck. I told myself I didn't need love, that I was too busy to care. But deep down, I wanted more. I wanted a partner, a teammate, someone who saw me for who I was and still chose me. My mother, Margaret Hastings, was the only one who really understood that longing. She had been my rock since childhood. We weren't wealthy, but she filled our home with warmth, wisdom, and gentle discipline. When I moved out and started my career, she was my first phone call every morning and my last at night. Elise and I were close once too. Close in the way siblings who share everything are, until competition crept in. She was 2 years younger, quicker to charm, always chasing the spotlight. And I let her. I was the achiever. She was the adored. It worked until it didn't. Still, when life got hard, I called Mom. She listened without judgment. She reminded me who I was. And when I met the man I thought I'd spend forever with, she was the first to know. I told her, I think I finally found him. Looking back, I had no idea how wrong I was. I met Adam Blake at a charity fundraiser on a chilly October evening. The ballroom was glittering, the champagne flowing, and I was there reluctantly, tagging along with an old college friend who insisted I get out more. And then he walked in. Adam had that kind of presence that turned heads without trying. Confident, polished, effortlessly charismatic. The kind of man who looked like he belonged on the cover of a magazine, because he had been. A self-made tech entrepreneur, already worth millions by 36, but somehow grounded. And when he turned his attention to you, it felt like the rest of the world disappeared. Our first conversation was about art, then travel, then the way the city lights shimmered on the river below. It wasn't just that he was handsome, it was how he listened, how he asked thoughtful questions, how he made me feel seen. That night ended with a walk by the harbor and a promise to see each other again. And we did. Again and again. Weekend getaways to Martha's Vineyard, candlelit dinners on rooftops, tickets to exclusive gallery openings. He was romantic in all the ways I'd dreamed, without ever making it feel like a performance. I was swept off my feet. And for the first time in years, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe. I had found the real thing. 18 months later, on a private yacht under a sky full of stars, Adam proposed. The ring was massive, 5 carats of sparkling promise. But it wasn't about the ring. It was about the way he looked at me as he asked. Like I was his forever, I said yes, without hesitation. And my mother, she cried happy tears. We started planning the wedding of a lifetime. But not every fairy tale survives the next chapter. Elise was the first person I told about the proposal. We hadn't always been close as adults, but I wanted her involved. I thought maybe this could be a chance for us to reconnect, to move past our childhood rivalries and build something new, something stronger. So I asked her to be my maid of honor. She was thrilled, or at least she acted like it. Big hugs, bright smiles, a dramatic gasp when she saw the ring. "You've always been the lucky one," she teased. "Now you've got it all." I laughed. I wanted to believe it was just sisterly banter. The truth? Elise had always wanted what I had. Even as kids, if I got a new backpack, she begged for the same one in a different color. If I made a friend, she'd suddenly be besties with them the next week. But I chalked it up to sibling competition. Normal, right? That night, I introduced her to Adam, and I noticed it immediately, the way she leaned in when he spoke, the way her hand lingered on his arm when she laughed, the way she complimented his suit, his watch, his eyes. But Adam barely reacted. He was polite, reserved, more focused on me. I convinced myself I was being paranoid. At our engagement party, Elise helped my mother string fairy lights across the backyard. She fussed over centerpieces, made a beautiful toast. She was involved, supportive, always nearby, too nearby. That evening, my mom pulled me aside in the kitchen. Her voice was soft, almost hesitant. "Claire, honey, just keep an eye on your sister." I smiled, washing champagne flutes at the sink. "Mom, it's fine. She's happy for me. We're not kids anymore." But deep down, something didn't sit right. I just didn't know how right my mother was. It started small. Adam began working late, said he was prepping for a product launch, international clients, urgent investor calls, all the things that sounded reasonable at first. Our usual Friday dinners turned into lonely evenings with takeout and unanswered texts. He stopped laughing at my stories. He'd sit across from me in silence, his phone lighting up every few minutes. And when I asked what was going on, he'd brush it off. "Just tired. Just busy. Nothing to worry about." But I was worried. Then came the comments. "You laugh too loud in public." "That blue dress makes you look washed out." "Can you stop reading in bed? The light's distracting." Suddenly, all the little things he used to love about me were problems to be fixed. Meanwhile, Elise kept calling. She wanted to help with wedding planning. "Just to take the stress off your plate," she said. She offered to handle vendor meetings, cake tastings, floral arrangements, anything I couldn't attend because of work. One night, we were having dinner at a fancy Italian place downtown. I was trying to share a story about a new client, but Adam barely looked up from his phone. The 5th text made me snap. "Is something more important happening somewhere else?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He gave a tight smile. "Sorry, just work stuff." I nodded, pretending I believed him, but my stomach sank. Later that week, while doing laundry, I smelled something unfamiliar on his shirt, a heavy floral perfume, not mine. When I asked, he had an answer ready. "Investor meeting." She hugged me goodbye. I wanted to believe him. I needed to. But the doubt had crept in, quiet but constant, and it was about to get louder. The signs were all there. I just didn't want to see them. I told myself I was imagining things, that it was just wedding stress, that Adam was still the man I fell in love with. But everything felt off. Then came the moment that shattered the illusion completely. It started with a small thing, an earring, a silver sapphire drop earring, wedged between the seat and center console of Adam's car. One I recognized immediately. It belonged to Elise. a family heirloom from our grandmother. She had worn them to our engagement party. My stomach dropped. I showed Adam that evening. His face didn't even flinch. "Oh, I gave her a ride to the florist," he said, calm as ever. "She mentioned losing an earring." "You never told me you gave her a ride," I said quietly. "Didn't I? Must have slipped my mind." I called Elise. Her story matched his word for word. Too perfectly. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, questions spinning like a storm in my head. Had they rehearsed that? Were they lying straight to my face? Or was I just losing my mind? 3 weeks before the wedding, Adam sat me down. "I think we should postpone," he said gently. "You've been different lately. Maybe we're rushing things." I broke. Tears spilled down my cheeks as I begged him to tell me what I'd done wrong, how I could fix it. He held me, but his eyes were hollow. That night, I woke up at 3 a.m. and found his side of the bed empty. I heard his voice in the guest room. Low, urgent, secretive. "Not now, she'll hear us. I know, I promise. Soon." The next morning, I made a decision. I packed his favorite lunch and went to his office, unannounced. And that's when I saw it with my own eyes. I walked through the glass doors of Adam's office building, heart pounding, hands clenched around a brown paper lunch bag. His favorite sandwich inside. A small gesture. A last chance, maybe, to find the man I thought I loved. The receptionist greeted me with a nervous smile. "He's in a meeting," she said. "He asked not to be disturbed." I didn't wait. I pushed past her, heart thudding louder with every step down that hallway. And then I opened the door. Adam was leaning against his desk, hands resting on Elise's waist. Her arms were wrapped around his neck, their lips locked in a kiss that was anything but new. They didn't even notice me at first. I stood there, frozen, watching the two people I trusted most in the world betray me in the most intimate way. When the door clicked behind me, they sprang apart. "Claire," Adam said, straightening his tie like we were in a boardroom. Elise didn't even bother lying. "It just happened," she said coldly. "How long?" I asked. Adam hesitated. Elise didn't. "Since the engagement party," he said. I dropped the lunch bag. It hit the floor with a soft thud, quieter than my heart breaking inside my chest. "You made choices," I said. "Don't pretend this was an accident." Adam pressed the intercom. "Please escort Claire out." But I didn't need help walking away. I left with my dignity, even if I felt like I was dying on the inside. That day, I hit bottom. My parents were devastated. My father threatened legal action. My mother just held me as I sobbed on her kitchen floor. And when the pain became too much to bear, I knew what I had to do. I left Portland, I left the ruins, and I started over. Chicago wasn't just a new city, it was my escape hatch. A place to disappear, to breathe again, to rebuild from nothing. I transferred to our firm's Midwest office and moved into a quiet studio apartment on the 5th floor of an old brownstone. The furniture was borrowed. The silence, heavy. But for the first time in months, I had space. Real space. I threw myself into work, stayed late, took on difficult clients. I didn't want to think. I didn't want to feel. I just wanted to forget. But forgetting doesn't come easy. There were nights I couldn't sleep. Mornings when I sat on the shower floor with tears mixing with the water. My therapist diagnosed me with depression, suggested medication. I nodded quietly and filled the prescription, and slowly things began to shift. I started saying yes to after-work drinks. I joined a yoga class, then a book club. I stopped checking Elise's social media, stopped wondering what Adam was doing. I began putting pieces of myself back together, pieces that had been buried under someone else's shadow. Then came the tech conference in San Francisco. I was there to represent our company, present on digital marketing strategies. I expected stale coffee and awkward name tags. What I didn't expect was Julian Foster. He wasn't flashy. He didn't own the room. He didn't try to impress anyone. But when he spoke, he made people feel heard, seen. Our conversation started with algorithms and ended with childhood books. We sat across from each other at a networking dinner, but it felt more like old friends reconnecting. He asked for my card. I gave it, assuming nothing would come of it. The next morning, he emailed me. Would I like to grab coffee? That one simple question would change everything. Coffee turned into conversation. Conversation turned into friendship. And that friendship slowly became the most unexpected love story of my life. Julian Foster wasn't like Adam. He wasn't trying to win anyone. He didn't flood me with flowers or make grand gestures. Instead, he showed up, with quiet consistency. He remembered how I took my coffee. He walked me home in the rain without saying a word. He never asked me to forget what happened. He simply made room for all of it. My hurt, my fears, my hesitation. The first time he asked me to dinner, I panicked. I nearly canceled twice, but I forced myself to go. And 20 minutes into that dinner, I had a full-blown panic attack. My hands shook. My breath came in shallow gasps. I couldn't speak. I thought I'd ruined everything, but Julian didn't flinch. He quietly moved to the seat beside me. He didn't ask questions. He just waited, calm, steady, safe, until I could breathe again. The next day, a bouquet arrived at my office. No grand declarations, no pressure. Just a simple note. No pressure, no expectations, just hoping you're feeling better. Julian. That night, I called him, and for the first time, I told someone the whole truth. About Adam, about Elise, about everything I had lost. He didn't try to fix me, he just listened. And then he shared his story. About a marriage that ended when his wife left him for his business partner. About betrayal and rebuilding. He said, healing isn't a straight line, but anyone worth your time will understand that. And I believed him. Because with Julian, I never felt like I had to be perfect. Just real, and real was more than enough. 1 year after I moved to Chicago, Julian proposed. Not on a yacht, not with cameras or crowds. It was quiet, thoughtful. Him. We were walking through the Botanic Garden just after sunset. Roses climbing overhead, fireflies dancing in the air. He stopped beneath the archway, took both of my hands, and said, "Knowing you has been the greatest gift of my life. I'm not asking for an answer today, or even this year, but whenever you're ready, I'll be here." My heart tightened. For a moment, Adam's proposal flashed in my mind. The luxury, the pressure, the show. But Julian's voice grounded me. He wasn't offering a fantasy. He was offering home. I whispered, "Yes, I'm ready now." The ring was simple, an emerald framed by 2 delicate diamonds. Elegant, understated, just like him. We planned a small wedding, only 30 guests. No show, no spotlight, just love. At my mother's urging, I sent Elise an invitation. Not because I wanted her there, but because I needed to know I had released the bitterness. She responded via email. "Congratulations, we're unavailable that day. Best wishes." It didn't sting the way I expected. It felt distant, like a chapter long closed. Our wedding was everything my heart had been waiting for. My father walked me down the aisle with tears in his eyes. Julian's vows weren't about forever. They were about today, about showing up, about building trust daily. Afterward, we danced barefoot under string lights. No performance, no perfection, just joy. And for the first time in years, I felt truly free. But as I stood there, hand in hand with the man who chose me gently and loved me honestly, I had no idea the past was still following us, in ways I could never have predicted. We were at a dinner party, a networking event for tech investors and founders. Julian was deep in conversation with a group of executives when I heard it. A name, a familiar one. "Reynolds?" A man chuckled. Yeah, he and Foster had quite the rivalry back in the day. Foster backed the winning startup. Reynolds lost everything. My heart skipped. Reynolds, Adam Reynolds. I waited until we got home. I sat across from Julian in the living room. the hum of the city just outside our window. "Did you know?" I asked quietly. Julian met my eyes without flinching. "I was going to tell you eventually," he said. "I didn't know the details, just that you were once engaged to him. That's all I heard before we met. Why didn't you say something? I wanted you to know me as me, not as the man who came after him or beat him at some business deal." I exhaled, heart thudding in my chest, but I wasn't angry. In fact, something about it felt right, like the universe had quietly tied a thread between my past and my healing. The man who betrayed me, who once held my heart, had gambled everything and lost. And the man who truly saw me, he didn't need to brag. He had already won where it mattered, not in boardrooms, but in my heart. 2 years into our marriage, we began trying for a child. It wasn't easy. Months passed. Doctor visits, hard conversations. But Julian never wavered, never made me feel like less. He held me through tears and whispered, "No matter what happens, we're already a family." And just as life was beginning to settle, another phone call would change everything. The call came on a quiet Thursday morning. I was sitting at my desk sipping tea, the Chicago skyline glowing behind me when my phone lit up with my father's number. His voice was strained. "Claire, it's your mother. The cancer's back." The room went silent. Everything inside me dropped. Julian was already packing a bag before I hung up. We flew to Portland that night, racing time and holding on to hope we knew, deep down, was fading. Her body was tired, but her spirit still strong. She met us with a smile, brushing my hair back and whispering, "You came home." I took a leave from work, moved back into my childhood room, and became her caregiver. Julian flew in every weekend. He cooked. He held my father through silent grief. He held me when I fell apart. One night, as I adjusted her pillow, she gripped my wrist. "Claire," she said softly, "I need to ask you something." I nodded, unsure what was coming. "Promise me, you'll try. Not for Elise, but for yourself. Life is too short to carry that weight." I swallowed back tears. "I don't know if I can, Mom." I didn't say now. I said try. 3 days later, she passed in her sleep. I was beside her, holding her hand, just like I had promised. I called Elise. It was the first time I had spoken to her in years. She answered on the second ring. "She's gone," I whispered. There was silence, then the sound of her breath catching. "I'll be there in an hour," she replied. And just like that, the sister I had sworn to never speak to again was coming home, not as a rival, not yet as family, but maybe, just maybe, as something in between. The funeral morning was gray, the kind of soft drizzle that matched the weight in my chest. I stood in front of the mirror in my childhood bedroom, adjusting my black dress. Behind me, Julian rested his hands gently on my shoulders. "I'm with you," he whispered. "No matter what happens today." Downstairs, my father sat at the kitchen table, staring into a cup of cold coffee. He looked smaller somehow, as if the grief had folded him in half. At the funeral home, friends and relatives filled the space. There were flowers, warm handshakes, whispered condolences, and then a hush. Elise entered. Her designer heels, her black silk dress, her diamond ring catching the chapel light. And beside her, Adam. I didn't look at them. I looked at the photo of my mother beside her casket, her smile, her strength, her peace. They approached. Elise hugged our father. Adam shook his hand. Then Elise turned to me. "It's been a long time," she said. "Yes," I replied, eyes steady. Then she asked to speak privately. We stepped into a quiet side room. She started with fake smiles and forced updates. A new house, business deals, plans for a nursery. But then her voice changed. "I wanted you to know I'm miserable." She admitted it all, the lies, the shame, the cracks in their perfect life. Adam's control, the mounting debt, the truth behind the curtain. "I'm leaving him," she said. "I've spoken to a lawyer. I can't live like this anymore." We didn't hug, we didn't cry, but something shifted. That evening, we sorted through our mother's things together. We remembered notes and lunchboxes, her laughter in the kitchen, the way she loved us, even when we couldn't love each other. It wasn't closure, but it was a beginning. 6 months later, I found out I was pregnant. After years of hoping, years of trying and hurting and letting go, it happened quietly, unexpectedly. I stared at the test in disbelief. Then I laughed. Then I cried. Then I whispered, "You were right, Mom." Julian came home with flowers. He knelt beside me, hand on my belly, even though there was nothing to see yet. "We're ready," he said. And I believed him. I sit here now, in a nursery painted the softest shade of sage. Sunlight filters through the window, catching the dust in the air. Julian is nearby, assembling a crib while humming off key to some lullaby neither of us know the words to. I look around at this life, our brownstone, my career, this baby on the way, and I'm in awe. Not because it's perfect, but because it's mine, built with honesty, brick by emotional brick. Elise and I speak occasionally now. She left Adam, rents a modest apartment, works at a local agency. She's rebuilding too. And while we're not sisters the way we once were, we're no longer enemies. She came to visit last month, brought a tiny stuffed elephant and asked, "Can I be part of their life?" And I said yes, because forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's choosing peace over poison. My mother was right again. Letting go isn't weakness, it's strength. The betrayal that once defined me, it no longer does. It shaped me, but it didn't break me. If you've ever lost everything, if someone betrayed you so deeply you thought you'd never heal, I want you to know this. You are not alone. And this is not your ending. Sometimes the most painful chapters lead to the most beautiful stories.